on markers and clickers. So every time I do a session with a new client, and even if they've had some previous training in the past, I always ask them if they know what clicker training is or they've ever used marker words or any of this stuff. And I usually get the exact same response from just about everybody. Once in a while, there's somebody who actually understands it a little bit better than somebody else. But for the most part, it's the same reply. I get, I've heard of it, not really sure how it works, but definitely heard of it. Or we use them in puppy class and we mark the behavior with, but then they don't stick with it. They don't understand how important it is or don't use it. So it's very, for some reason, it's confusing to a lot of people when you try to explain it to them. So, all right, so marker words and clickers. So how do they come about? So classical conditioning, Pavlov's theory. Some of you might have heard of this. Famous experiment. They had a bunch of dogs in an area. They would ring a buzzer or a bell, and they would deliver some food. Over time, they started to realize that it was actually creating a physical reaction in the dogs, and the dogs would start salivating in anticipation of the food. It was changing a behavior. They actually were able to make a noise and get a behavior reaction. So they learned that you could take that and pair it up with training. All animals, they use it, and they train dolphins like this. So when you understand what markers are and how clickers are used and how valuable they are, I always tell people, like, you can teach your dog to sit or go get you a beer out of the refrigerator if you're good with timing and with markers and your timing and rewarding. It's the same formula. There's just more sequences in going to get the beer out of the fridge. There's little pictures that we paint and click along the way to reward the dog until they complete the entire task. So all we're doing with a marker or a clicker is we're marking a moment in time. The second the dog does a behavior that we like, we click the clicker, or we say our marker word, yes, and we deliver some food, okay? So, or we deliver a treat, a toy, or verbal praise, whatever it might be. It doesn't always have to be food, but that's the whole idea. I also got to say, in that experiment, they also realized that if you ring the buzzer or click and deliver food at the exact same time, you don't create that physical reaction in the dog. So it's important, guys, that your timing with your markers is really good the second they do the behavior. I always tell people, like, if you're teaching a dog to sit and the dog starts to sit and you say yes with the dog's ass 3 inches above the ground and the dog knows what yes means, or you click when the dog's ass is 3 inches above the ground, the dog will start hovering, like, because you marked it at that precise moment. Also got to say, your dog needs to know what yes or what the clicker means. So that's done by charging the dog with the clicker or conditioning the dog. All that is we click, feed, click, feed, click, feed. We do a bunch of reps, click, feed, click, feed, click, feed, or yes, feed, yes, feed, yes, feed. The dog doesn't have to do anything. We just yes, feed, yes, feed, yes, feed, yes, feed. Again, not at the same time. Yes, then feed, or click, then feed. Then the dog starts to understand that this clicker or that word, yes, the marker word, means I'm going to get something, or something awesome is about to happen. Once your dog understands what yes means or what a clicker means, you can do anything. You can also use this formula to start correcting unwanted behaviors by when your dog starts offering a good decision or a really good behavior. You can start marking and rewarding this, okay? So what I find with most people that I work with, because your entire life you've seen people interact with dogs, for the most part, when they interact, they say Fido sit and they go good boy or good girl. You never hear them say yes or click anything. So people, when I start teaching this, they really struggle with when to say yes. And it's the moment in time exactly when your dog does something right, okay? So if it's a sit, it's the second their ass hits the ground. If it's a down, it's not until like the belly or the chest hits the ground. Yes, or click. If it's a recall, the second the dog starts coming towards you, yes, or click. They were marking that precise moment in time that we want to let them know that was the right decision, okay? So when I start doing this with people, they inherently, because like I said, you've been conditioned not to say yes. You've been conditioned to say good boy or good girl. So everyone kind of stumbles with this, and they'll mean to say yes, but they say good boy, and then they say yes, or it's confusing. I get it. But if you think about it in this sense, I think this makes it a little bit easier. Pretty much everybody is a master at marking negative behaviors. You're so on point with your negative behaviors. So when your dog does something wrong, you go, no, or, or don't do that, or whatever. Your timing is perfect. Your dog's about to run out. They're about to get in the garbage. They're about to, I don't know, they're digging a hole. The second you see them do something you don't like, you're like, Fido, no, no, and you're marking it. You're marking a moment in time. You're layering that with a marker word or a sound, your correction sound, or whatever you say, or whatever you do that stuff. That's what you're doing. You're marking a moment in time with a correction. Here's the problem. If you don't have a consequence with your no or your correction sound, you're training your dog that no or your correction sound means nothing at all. Okay, it means nothing. You have to have a leash on the dog. You have to have a way to prevent the behavior when you're doing your marking, when you're marking negative behaviors. Okay, so I find that it's weird to me because it's like you're so good at marking the negative behaviors, but yet you struggle with marking the good behaviors. So if you can get just as good at marking the negative behaviors marking your good behaviors as you are with your negative behaviors with your marker word no, now your dog needs to know what yes means. You can start painting brand new pictures for the dog, and you can basically take every moment every time they make a mistake, you can turn that now into a teaching moment by showing them, I'd like you to do this instead. And when they actually do it, you click or you mark and you reward the dog. Repetition and pattern is how they learn. Okay, so once my dogs learn what yes means, it's like one of the first things I teach them is yes means food is coming from my hand. That's usually my go-to is food. But again, sometimes when I'm working with the higher driven dogs, like the tennis ball for the Shepherds and the Mals are like, it works way better than food. But the point is that when they hear yes, they're going to get rewarded. And again, the reward can be toys, food, play, interaction with me sometimes, just a scratch behind the ear. Sometimes, at the end, it can just be a good boy or a good girl. But when you're teaching a brand new behavior, using a clicker or a marker word, like yes, is going to make things super, super quick. Okay, so once you understand that formula, now, I'm going to try to give you a bunch of examples here. Your dog's counter surfing. It jumps up and puts its paw on the counter. If you have a leash on the dog, which I highly recommend, tether training, especially like a new dog because you're training. If the dog's up on the counter and you say, Fido, off. Okay, I like to give the dogs like 1 second to make a good decision. If they don't get off, now I take the leash, I guide them gently off, but when all four, when their front paws hit the ground, I would say yes or click and give them a piece of food. Okay? I do a ton of repetitions of stuff like that. They go, oh, next thing you know, you start saying off. You don't even need to pull the leash. They start doing it on their own because we're marking exactly when they're doing it, okay? I do that with furniture. If the dog jumps up on the couch, they got their leash off. Instead of making a big production, I go over, I say, Fido, off. And if they don't get off, I gently pull them off the couch when their paws hit the ground. Yes, I always have kibble in my pocket when I have, new dogs in the house, especially when I'm working on this stuff. So I can take every moment and turn it into a teaching moment, okay? You got a puppy that's biting the shit out of you. I have one right now. My hands are torn up. Dog doesn't really know what yes means because we've just been doing a lot of engagement stuff the first week. But when our training starts, when he knows what yes in the clicker means, now I can say leave it. Or if I say and he takes his teeth off me, the second those teeth come off, or yes, and I give him food, and he starts learning. In that moment in time, you did the exact right thing. This formula is how I correct just about everything, and it's very easy to correct because the dog understands what yes means or what the clicker means, okay? Okay, so for me, if I'm working with a dog privately, just one-on-one with a dog, I use clickers all the time. When I'm teaching my clients, I teach them marker words like yes, okay? I find most people, it's cumbersome to pull out a clicker, have it on you all times. Do whatever's easier for you. If your yeses aren't working really good, try using a clicker. You can switch it over. Whatever works better for your dog, try it. What are the advantages and disadvantages of marker words versus a clicker? So for me, I guess, or the way I see it is when you use a clicker, there's no emotion behind it, okay? What I mean by that is it's the same sound every single time. It's kind of sharp and loud, so a lot of times it cuts through, and the dogs kind of, they almost automatically look at you like, what was that? And you can start working on this right away, okay? There's no emotion behind this. The exact same sound every single time. That's a nice benefit with this, and these work great for all kinds of things that I do with dogs. But like I said, when I'm teaching people, I teach them to use the marker word. So your marker word, like yes, you can say yes, a bunch of different ways. You can go yes or yes, and you can say yes. Even when you're marking negative behaviors, no can be, no, or it can be, no, don't do that. And there's all kinds of emotion that gets behind it, in my opinion, that can get in the way. So that's the really nice thing about a clicker. It's the same sound every single time. But again, if I just use yes, and I try to just keep it, listen, sometimes if I'm doing recall, I go, yes, good boy, I get really animated because I want the dog to be excited coming back to me. And then sometimes I keep my yeses kind of mellow if we're working on things where I want the dog calm. But as long as your dog knows what yes means or what the clicker means, the sky's the limit. You can teach them everything, all right? So I'll make another video on how to start charging or conditioning your dog to the word yes, and how you can start implementing it and using it throughout your day with your training, all right? So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, and hopefully it helps somebody out there. And I highly recommend using marker words or clickers. So give it a try, guys. Good luck.